Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for Dungeon Kart. This is a game by Brotherwise Games. It is part of the Boss Monster franchise, which if you're not familiar with, I've done some videos, so you can definitely go check those out. Is they re-represent the battle of RPG heroes such as Zelda going through a dungeon, except you're playing as the boss and you're creating the dungeon for them to go through. Bowser would be another example, where you're essentially creating the castle that Mario would have to run through. And then it's had a bunch of other iterations, and then it had Overboss, which is like a top-down where then you created the world. And now they've jumped into kart racing, because why not? Every time that was up the graphics, went from 8-bit to 16-bit. This is more probably 64-bit, like Mario Kart 64 style. So this is a racing game. But so yeah, although it is in the Boss Monster universe, it's not at all compatible with the Boss Monster game. You don't need that at all to play this. It's its own game. You'll notice here I have the Gold Edition. So the Gold Edition has a couple extra components in it. This is from essentially the Kickstarter edition. There was also a Silver Edition too. So the base game, then Silver Edition added a couple of things. The Gold Edition adds Silver plus some extra stuff for the Gold. So I'll make sure I point out what those components are. So if you just buy the base game, you know what you're going to get. But we'll go ahead and take just a brief look at what's all in the box. And then we'll kind of go through the rules a little bit. So I'm going to back this up. So in the box here, we are going to get a full rule book and explain how to play the game, some stuff on the back side, remembering how tracking icons. We are also going to get a racing guide, which explains how to assemble the different miniature models and stuff you're going to use. Plus, it also has some preset track catalogs. So if you want to start off at the beginning of the game, it's going to give you some different ways to set up your racetrack, which is kind of fun. But then it's also going to go through and give you some a little bit more information on all the different tokens and how each thing works, different heroes. I love this part, how each different character, because each character has their own special card, for the racer, gives you a little bit better idea of how they work, a little FAQ on how their special abilities work, which is really nice. Same thing, we have magic spells, explains in better detail how each one of those work. So this is really nice to have just around in case hey, you're not for sure exactly how the characters work or how things should work. That's really cool. Then we have a buttload of tokens that have not popped out yet. So we're gonna have and we'll look at these a little bit more in just a minute. I'll go over everything a little bit more in depth. But we have all these different tokens here. So we have a sheet there. We're going to get a bunch of these driver dashboards. Just going to have some different stuff on them. Some gold coins, some tokens for your characters. Then each different board has 2 more. I think there are 8 race cars in here, so you can play up to 8 players. A bunch of more tokens there. And most of these are the same on both sides. The shifters aren't. And I will build those to show how those go. Bunch of hero tokens, some more character tokens, some more shifter knobs. They did give some extra shifter knobs and stuff just in case you messed up on something, you accidentally broke one or popped something wrong. And there's the last one for that. And then we actually have some alternate smoke tokens and stuff on the other side. And again, we'll look at those a little bit more in depth when we get there. Then, in the actual box itself, so if we kind of flip this up, we have a big giant spot here for all our tokens and stuff. And then we have a little extra tray here that pops out. This will hold all our different cards and components. I'm going to zoom my camera down a bit. So we do have a bag here for tokens. If you ever need to draw any, they're all in there. We have some quick rule guides, which are really nice because they're open up. They're double-sided. Again, just brief information on how the different stuff works. You don't have to always refer to the book. Then we have a bunch of cards. We have all our characters, different racers. We have our different heroes. We have our different spells. And we'll go over all them in more detail. Then the next thing we have 2 sets of dice. So a couple of the different abilities. Boost and Smash and Air work with these dice. You roll them if you land on certain spots. We do get little peggy things for hooking your boards together. And then we get a bag full of your miniature racers. These are the guys that are actually going to be on the board. So if we pop one of them out really quick. Maybe quick. So just as an example, I know these don't go together, but they'll kind of slide into there, and I might need to like peel some of the plastic off first. But then it'll be a little racer, kind of shows it as a car, so you know which way it's going, has a name on there, so you know who's who in case you're not sure about the name. Obviously, this is King Croker, and not Killa. But yeah, we get a bunch of those, and we'll take a look at those as well. So that is what we got. Then the last thing we got, we got one more thing to look at. So in the box as well, we also have all these tiles. So if we pop all of these out, set all of those aside, is we have a bunch of race tiles which I haven't even unstrapped yet. So here's like a starting point. They're all double-sided, but they basically form up how your race board works. And we will lay these down. There's some coins, different symbols mean different things, and we'll go over all that. But you're going to get a basic racetrack out of this, and we'll, again, look at these. Some of these were Kickstarter stretch goals, so we have, like, Graveyard. We get into the lava tiles, which were also there. There's some waterways. There's a library, or a dungeon. Another dungeon. Some more waterways. Yeah, so we're going to get a bunch of tiles. How many do we get in here to start with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 double-sided big tiles. Then we had the silver tier, which added a couple of new things in there. So the silver tier is going to start off by giving us 2 more racers, their tokens, and some more spell books. So you can actually up the game a little bit more if you want, have some more players. It also gave us a new set of tiles. So yeah, if you're looking at getting this secondary stuff, this is in the silver tier. So this is the void tiles, which have special effects on there, which I will teleporter spot, just going to make the game even crazier. But they're 100% mix and match, and there are 6 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And then they also came with a rule sheet for them, explaining how these portals work. Some of the new terrain on there, all that stuff, measuring, plus some information on the 2 new racers. So we have kind of like that. They don't show them off as well, but then also some pre-done stuff. Now this does have listed silver upgrades. It is possible they might, in the Brotherwise web store, they might sell the silver package as a separate unit. So you can just pick that stuff up. I do not know, because it all came in the same box for me. And we also get an extra race car. You get the silver slicer. And it just more or less just gives you something different to play as. And then if you got gold tier, we got another set of tiles. So the gold tier got us the icy peaks. So we get some frost tiles, and we're going to get, I think, 7 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. So we get some different frost tiles, which will have some different stuff on the back. And again, we'll look at all of these in more depth as we go on. We get the little sheet explaining them as well. Snow and ice, how the ice works. We have 2 new races as well. plus some pre-made tracks. You can see like they're adding in some like, here's the ice, here's some of the lava from there. So that's fun. They're not just doing just the ice tracks. We did get our 2 new racer tokens and our little racer miniatures. No more spell books though. The other thing we also got in there was a write on leaderboard. So if you want to go ahead and write down, hey, who was winning on what date, who came in this place, kind of keep track overall. Kind of neat, you know, if that's something you really want to do. Does have a little pen holder down here, or marker holder. The last thing we got was a pack of gold metal coins. So these are just to replace the tokens in the game. They work functionally the same, but in case you want a big tactical, and these are actual metal coins. You get 40, which is the same number you would have gotten into the game. And I'm sure they might, again, sell these as a separate product later on, if you'd like to just get these. Also, additionally, these are usable for boss monster, if you'd like to put them into that game. The last thing we did get that was part of all of this is, we did get some boss monster cards. So we got some promo cards. We'll look at them as well. I don't know what tier those. They may have been any part of the Kickstarter campaign. So you might just have to pick these up as separate unless you get the gold or silver tier. They're probably not going to come in the base game. All right. So then the very, very last thing I wanted to look at is this was not actually part of the gold set. This was an add-on. So these are for holding your tiles. So these you could pick these up to purchase them. Being that I haven't used them yet, they are a little delicate there, but you can kind of, if I can slide these in here. The idea is to slide your boards in like this, and then you slide the other one. I'm trying to be careful not to wreck these, because yeah, they're still tight. But these were board holders. Yeah, so I'm not going to try and force it in right now. But the idea is that way you can clip these on the edge of your boards, on the outside in various spots. That way your boards stay together. So if someone bumps it, they're not shuffling these all around. 100% optional. But you can definitely pick these up. I don't remember how many came in a bag. I think 10. But yeah, definitely something you could pick up. It should be enough to make pretty much any board. So that is what we have for Dungeon Kart. Just looking at that. So, the components. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the rule book. And then, I think we'll kind of explain the rules. And then we'll probably do a second video where I actually dive in deeper into each individual card, spell, character, all that fun stuff. So I'll see you guys in just a second. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. Alright, so I set up a quick sampling of the board. Now this is not based on any of the tutorial or the setup guide. I just kind of ran it through. You can kind of set these boards up however you want. The only thing that has to happen is they have like a little road on here. Has to match at the end of every tile. So I can't put this board like this because there's no road that ends in there. And now it's this actual dirt, like tire tread paths that matter, not the actual road. Because you're going to get maybe some of the tiles that don't have necessarily a physical road. And you can combine them however you want. There's different sides here for how many racers you have and different things you can do there. Yeah, so set up your board however you want. The other neat thing is they do have a finish line here. So what you can actually do here is instead of having it be a track that goes around in a circle, you could have a track that just goes in a straight line instead. And you could put this somewhere else to have that be the end point. So it's saying like this last tile here, I could flip this, for example, and have it go this way, and I could drop I could even just do this, remove this tile, I could have that be the end tile there instead. So that's a really fun extra thing. The other thing they did for the finish line is they did end up giving you a big 3D one, so if you want to even drop that on the board, so you can just clearly see the 3Ds, and that's just kind of more of an aesthetic thing. But that is what that is. So then, before we look at the actual how to play, I just want to look at some of the other setup for the board. So once you set it up, they have the rules for picking out your racers. Each person you weigh on all the racers. Pick turn order. Someone can pick one, then the next player picks one, so on. Then you do the same thing with the dashboards. Or maybe in reverse order, the last person gets to pick their dashboard first, because each character has their own special ability. Each dashboard for the vehicles are a little bit differently. They have some extra symbols here that show some different stuff. But yeah, so you pick out all that stuff, but that's deciding how you want to do that. And then you set your track up, and then on the board, you want to set up some extra things. So they have some of these red hex tiles, little red arrows. These are your hazards. So what you're going to do is during the game, you're going to take all the brown ones, shuffle them into your token bag, and then randomly pick them out and place them on the board. So I'm just going to randomly throw some out here. And we'll look at in part 2 what each one of these specifically do. But yeah, I'm just going to throw some of these on some of these different spaces that you can see. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So those are going to be some of the different hazards that you might come across while racing. The other things on the board to note are these big black lines. We have some on this side. We have some right here in the middle. There's one right there. Those are walls. You can't drive through walls. So if my racer is trying to go this way, they can't cut through here because there's a wall right there. They can sneak through this little area because there's walls on either side, but they can't drive through. This is also saying where there's a wall right there. That's to prevent someone from driving straight off the wall there. Or on the way top up there, you can see on the outside of the water edge, there's a wall as well. The other couple of things we have a note on here is we have some ones that have coins in them. Anytime you drive through one of them, you get coins for the number of the coins on the board. And that's going to give you points to spend to use your character's abilities. So like look at King Croak here, just an example. He has one that costs 2 and one that costs 3. I think they all cost either 2 or 3. There might be some rare exceptions, a 3 and a 4. So picking up coins is going to definitely help you get more abilities. If you played a game, like this is based on like Mario Kart. If you played Mario Kart, you've seen that before. The other pictures on there are going to be like right here are spell books. There's some over here on this one. Those are basically your power chests. So as you pick them up, you will gain. As you run over one of them, you'll get a spellbook token. You can only have one per turn or per round going around. So you pick one up. It doesn't make sense to run through multiple of them. But then at the end of everyone's turn, you can decide, you draw different spells based on what position you're in. So like if we look, here's the other component for that. So we have one of our starting or our rank thing, so first, second, and first. So whoever's in first gets an A spell, whoever's in second gets a B spell. And they have a couple of these for each different level you would like to do. So if you want to play that, we have one for a 6-player game, one for a 5-player game. They have the one for the 4-player game that actually snaps in to make this for an 8-player game. And if we flip it over, it's for a 7-player game. So you can play anywhere from 3 to 7 players. Always having to have at least 3 players. I'm sure there's a rule in there for 2. And basically the spells work is A are a little bit weaker, and then C are the more powerful or more dangerous spells. This is kind of, again, to represent those games. Like, if you're in last place, you're going to get a spell that's going to help you do more stuff. So yeah, then it just determines based on what position you are on the board, you get to pick your spells out. So picking them up are helpful too, and you can see most of them are right on the track. Sometimes they're a little bit outside of the round, same thing with the coins. And then the last thing to mention on here is there are some other stuff on some of the tiles that have like special abilities and various things like that. But the two different things are, one is the boards have little hexes on them. This is how many points it costs to move into each spot, which we'll get into that in just a moment about spending costs for those. Because you have lots of ones, we have some threes over here, we have some twos. And then the other thing is the actual terrain itself does play a difference on how you movement around on the board. Yeah, so that's basically the gist of how to set up the game. And then you're gonna have your other tokens and stuff sitting around. You're gonna have your deck of cards for your heroes, your epic heroes in case you need that. So we have like an epic hero, we have a princess there. You're gonna want to have some of your other green tokens that we have in here, like zombies around for zombies. And just some of those other things around. And then you're going to, of course, give the first player token to whoever goes first. If that's what you decide to do. And then you'll have your dashboard and your player cards. So our dashboards, let's take a quick look at them. So when they're all set up, they're going to have these little cars here. So it looks like a car driving. And we have the MP stick. Now, the only problem is for whatever reason when I was punching this together, this one doesn't really want to stay very well, which is not very good. So I might end up just having to lay this down on the board. Now, if I grab my other one here, this one stays a little bit better, but for some reason when snapping these together, they didn't seem to snap together. You can kind of see there's still a little bit of a gap in there, so maybe I don't have them together as tight as I possibly could. Because what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to stay wherever I leave it. But it seems like once I get it down to 4 or this side, they tend to kind of fall. So I might just have to work on pushing them together a little bit harder. Maybe I'll have to like get a hammer or something. You know, hopefully not. But yeah, if I actually hold that, the idea is if I'm holding that together, that's how it's supposed to do. It's supposed to just stay in one spot. But they're a little bit loose. So, yeah, and then these things just pop right off the sides. So we're going to take a quick look at what's on a dashboard before we get into the rest of the rules of the game. So on the top here is we have our MP, which is our movement points. This is how many points during a turn. Actually, let me just grab one with the little shifter knob. Your character can move. So if I'm currently at this spot, my character can move six hexes. Or 6 dots worth of hexes, rather. Because if I run through a 3, it costs me 3 points. Up to 10. Each dial is a little bit different. So if we look at our other one here, this one has 3, 4, 6, and then now he has a 9 here instead of 8, so this guy actually just to move faster. Because they have special abilities on the outside, top speed, off-road, handling, and heavy, and it does show that on the front there as well. On the back side here, or the front side, which would be facing your opponents, it does also have this, which is going to show their current MP. So if someone else is looking at your board, they can see I'm at 8 MP. They can also see I have 8 movement points. So someone, other players don't have to try and guess what you're doing. Then the other little symbols we have on here are going to show various things that if you crash or you hit a wall, you move to this speed. If you spin out or you run through mud, you have to drop down to speed 4. If you run through grass or water, you go to 3. If you run through dirt, you're at 9. And as long as you're on the actual road and no special terrain, you can get up to your max speeds. So this is going to determine, so if like I have, for example, if I have King Croak here, and he decides to take this off-road path up here to go around and collect these extra coins, he's only going to be able to move as fast as he can drive on dirt. If he decides to cut back through this grass, then now he has to reduce down to there. The same thing if he comes over here and he tries cutting through this water space to get these coins, he's going to be moved down to 6 points. So running through various terrain is going to reduce how fast you can drive. Makes sense. But it might be the difference between picking up some extra power-ups. The other thing we have on the bottom are 4 special abilities you have access to. So over here we have, you can use any number of times. We have movement, costs 1 movement point per every hex got in a hex. Or we have a bump, which lets you push another driver. So that's basically if King Croak moved into Killer's space, he could use his bump ability to push him one of these other directions off his tile. Which could help, because you could ram him in, you could push him into a wall, push him into a hazard. Push them into a water tile, so then now they're stuck with a water tile. But also noticing this is a heavy car, so it has 0 bump power. This one does not. It has 1. Most of them have 1 bump. Some of the cars get a little bit cheaper. Some of their abilities are different for that reason. On the other side, once per turn, you can drift, which lets you move 1 tile left or right, based on the cost of pips in there. Otherwise, you always have to move straight. So if I can move 3 spaces, I have to move 1, 2, 3. If I want to go that direction, I have to turn my car. Unless I use drift, which will let me move one of these other spaces so I can kind of maybe get around a little bit more. But to get around this corner, I'm eventually going to have to turn. Let me turn my camera a bit. Yeah, so if I have so many spaces, eventually King Croak here is going to have to turn, or he's going to drive off the board. I can drift to get over a little bit. Like, I could drift a couple, like, I can only do it once per turn, but I could drift that way. But for me to actually get the other way, I actually have to turn my car. That is your other once per turn ability. It costs 1 MP to turn 60 degrees. So it's basically to one of the other hexes. So more or less, my car's going this way. I get here, I'm going to want to spend a point to turn this way. And then now I have to keep going this way. But I'm going to have to be able to stop at some point here to turn again. To start going that direction. But see, that'd be the difference between, do I go here and if I get here and I turn this way, I go here, now I can turn here, and I can kind of go that way. But again, you're going to eventually have to turn again to eventually get back that direction, or you're going to keep going this way. So it kind of adds an interesting element that you can only turn once per turn. And again, depending on the cars. So like this one here has a 0 cost for turning. This one costs 1. So that's the difference between, for example, if whoever's driving this car has 6 movement points, it's going to cost them 1 point to turn, but it's going to cost them 0 points to bump. Whereas if I'm playing this one, this purple one, and they have 6 points, it'll cost them 0 to turn, but 1 point to bump. So you get a little bit of differences on each one, which is pretty interesting. So you might also say, though, why don't you just stick on the road then, since you can get a higher speed for that? Because you're shortcuts, right? My guy gets here, I move him right here. If I turn him this way, and I spend the extra 6 points to go through here, to get into there, and then I can go turn again to go that way, so it costs me 1 point to turn, 3, 6, 7, and then now I can keep going, as opposed to from this spot going 1, 2, 3, having to turn once, 4, turn again, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cost me 8 points to basically get almost back to the same spot as it cost here. But the thing is, I had to do 2 turns. I can only turn once per turn. I had to turn a second time there, I guess. But he could have went this way and potentially went straight across. But it could be that extra time getting around, but you also lose your movement once you drive through that dirt. Because that's mud, so it would have went down from, this guy, for example, would have went from being on the road where he could have been doing whatever, he would have had to drop down to 5. So that does make a difference there, too. So it's kind of that gimmick. You play Mario Kart, you take a shortcut, right? Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Alright, so we kind of explained that, so I'm going to kind of look through the rules a little bit more. We went through the setup. I'm not going to get into too much more there. And explain what those are. So there are different rules for each different car. Acceleration has starting speeds are a little bit higher. Top speed, their last speeds are higher. Off-road, the terrain penalty is moved a little bit for some of them. Handling, their the turn is for free. Heavy, their bump is for free. And traction, its drift only costs one less. So it's a little bit interesting. You get some different stuff there as well. So what do we actually do for the gameplay? The actual gameplay is each player sets their speed, then they spend MP to move to take movement points, to move and take other actions, adjust your speed due to terrain, obstacles, and braking, and then end your player and pass to the next player. So setting your speed. Beginning of each player's turn, the active player must adjust their speed. You must adjust your speed, either up or down one level. Why would you go down? Might be the case. Because, again, if I am right here, and I need to get around this corner, if I have 12 movement points, I'm not going to be able to turn enough. Because, right, I can only turn 90 degrees. So I can go 1, 2, 3... I can turn, but then I got 4, 5, 6. I'm going to crash into this wall way off the board. There's no way, like, even if I start here, if I started with 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that gets me enough to keep me on the board. Then my next turn, I'm going to have to turn 1 point, and then now I can start moving, but I'm going to have to take the off-road path just to be able to stay alive. But whereas if I had 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that again might help me because I could spend 6, but then now I could drop it down to, let's say, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, and I'm going to drive off the road. So having the highest points only is going to make a difference. Maybe like back here, like if I move my character way over here and I got them turned like back on this side, and now I had 10 points, and I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could get a long stretch, but if you have a couple of twists, you're not going to want to go as fast. So yeah, there is 2 exceptions to that rule. Players do not have to change their speed if they're at the lowest setting or if they're at the highest setting. So if you're at the highest or lowest, you do not have to adjust either direction. And players get MP equal to the thing. Now, there's no counter to keep track of how many movement points you had. So you have to do that kind of in your head. So on your turn, you're going to move. All MP must be spent during a player's turn or the racer crash. So plan your route accordingly. Racers are going to have a complicated movements. They can mark their starting location with the ghost cart. So they give you this extra little fun boss monster looking ghost cart. So this is basically if my character's here and I have 5 movement points, rather than, so what I can do is I can put my ghost racer here, or vice versa. I could leave him there. I could test my movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you can play around a bit. Gives you a little bit of option with knowing where you started from without having to try and remember which tile you're on. So it's a fun little addition. Again, though, being with that, hopefully you're not playing with people that are going to take forever to do that. The racer can occupy the same hex as another racer as long as they do not end their movement in the same hex space. So you can drive through a spot. If you land on their spot, you can then use your bump ability to move them. You just cannot end on the exact same space. Bumping's good. Bump guys into walls, stuff like that. So there's our movement action. Move forward 1 hex while maintaining the direction of space and getting unlimited amount of times as long as it has MP to spend. So this, the little dot just means hex's terrain cost. Let's kind of explain some of that. Says at the end of your movement, as long as you have at least 1 MP left, you can enter 1 more hex, even if the MP cost of that hex is more. more than the MP you have. If you do end your movement on that hex, you cannot gain MP or complete any other actions, even 0 MP actions. So that's very helpful if, like, you're getting into, like, for, like, your I'm just going to use this as an example. If I end my turn right here, I don't have 3 more points, but I have 1 point left. I can still move into this spot. So it gives you a little extra free movement, just so if you have 5 movement, you can always kind of plan that, so you can plan, whatever. If I'm here, I can go 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, oh, I don't have enough to move. I could turn, go 4, and I could move 5, actually. But if I got way out in here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I had a 6 movement point, I could spend my 6 movement point to do this if I didn't want to turn. It just gives you that extra little option, because, again, otherwise, you're going to crash if you don't use all your points. Turning, you only do this once per turn, though. So just keep in mind how you're doing that, just so you don't crash. And it says it's going to cost 1 no matter what number of tiles you're in. Very simple there. Drifting, we kind of went over. You just did a move left and right. So here it's showing that in this spot, King Croak was going to crash into this black obstacle, so he drifted that way. And Belladonna was going to crash into Croak, so she moves this direction. Eventually, she would have ran into that anyhow. Bumping the guys. I love they show this picture. She moves straight forward into his tile. She can send into one of them 3. You get to pick which one you do. So now, again, for this, it's going to probably make more sense for her to shove him down here because there's a trap in the area. But it might just depend on, what else is going on. I'll just show you can bump a guy into a wall. But if you bump them, you have to be able to keep moving through that tile. So you can't end your tile. I can't have 1 point left, bump them on the last tile, unless you'll move them off that tile. If it's going to bump them into a wall and they're going to stay there, I can't do it because I can't move out of the way. I'd have to move that 1 extra point to move instead. The final action they have, which is not listed anywhere, is braking. Once per turn, you may spend 1 MP to adjust your speed down 2 settings. It does not affect how many MP you have. This is rarely used action and is therefore not on the dashboard in a race. You generally don't want to be stepping on the brakes, but it can save you from crashing into a tight movement when used cleverly. So yeah, this is where, if for some reason I'm on 9 and I'm really I'm coming up to a bunch of corners, you might want to brake, drop down to 7. It's still not going to change. You're still going to have 9 points for the turn, minus the 1 you just spent, so you're down to 8. But that means on the next turn, you can either drop back down to 5 or you can go back up to 8. Instead of being at 9, having to go to 8 or 10. So it could just be the difference of being able to start your next round off at 8 movement or starting at 5. And 5 might be worth it if you have a bunch of corners, because you could have less spaces to worry about crashing. And then we have racer powers, which you can use as well. Crashing and spinning out. If you spin out, end your movement and adjust your speed to the second lowest setting. You may not cast spells or use racer powers after spinning out. If you crash, end your movement and adjust your speed to its lowest setting. At the start of your next player turn, you can change your facing any direction. You can lay your racer on its side to indicate its crash, or just remember, you may not cast spells. So, if you've then played a kart racer game, you've been crashed into a wall or a trap or something that fell just because you weren't paying attention, or you drove off the road by accident into a pit or into some lava. And that's what crashing is going to end up doing. On the racetrack, we have some various pips. Roads, which have 1 pip, grass, which has 2, dirt, which also has 1, mud, water, which have 3, and then lava and pits. Just says how many points you have to spend to go through them, unless you run into the lava or pit, which are crashing you. If a racer ever enters a pit with a hex without a pip, they crash and return to the previous hex there. If they enter a lava pit, they also lose 1 coin. So terrain penalty. So at the end of each movement, they must set their speed down to the most difficult terrain they entered that turn is marked on the player board. If their speed setting is already lower than the terrain setting, they may not change it. This penalty does not take effect during the turn, only at the end of the turn. A kart's off-road ability affects the terrain. So what that means is, again, so if I'm driving, let me grab one with my shifter knob, a little bit easier to kind of tell. So if I was up here and I'm driving on the road, I am perfectly fine at 8 speed. My next turn, I can adjust it either way. But let's say if I am driving, and again, I am Croak, and I go through this direction, right? And I go through this mud here. Now it means at the end of my turn, I have to shift down to show that I drove through mud. So now, even though I was at 8, now I'm at 4 for my next turn, which I again could drop down to 3 or go up to 6. If you go through multiple terrain for some reason, way over on this side, let's say I went through this water, and I somehow got down into this grass, right? So if I was way up here at 9, even though I'm ended in grass, I have to drop down to water. So if you ever have an instance where, like, let's say you were in grass, but you ran through mud, you have to drop it down to mud, even if mud was the first thing you went through. It's always wherever your slowest terrain you went through was. And again, this is showing if you spin out, you go to 4, or if you hit a wall or crash, you go to 3. So very good. It shows them icons to show you what you need to do. Yeah, so sometimes taking a shortcut might not be worth it. Sometimes you might not have a choice. So, like, as we were showing over here, maybe you can't get enough turn points here to turn twice to go straight back down the road. So maybe you have to end up taking the long way around. You're going to get some coins out of it, but it's going to take a little bit longer. I also, on the same fact, is way up in the top corner, you could end up having to drive through all that water. You might not want to, but it just might be the way your car is turned. You might not have enough points. Yeah, so very simple there. Then we have some various hazards, which we'll look over in part 2 to see what they all do, but they're just going to be various things. When you hit them, bad things are going to happen to you, unless it's a boost, which may or may not be good. If they have the black ring around them, like the gravestone, you cannot drive through them. It just ends up as being a wall. And then we do have some green ones that pop up, so these end up... they're ones that are placed on the board due to spells, as opposed to just being a hazard tokens already on the board. It doesn't matter how you hit a hazard, whether you drive into one, get bumped into one, in your immediate active aspect, even if it's another player's turn. Walls and obstacles, saying you can't drive through walls. So if it doesn't have a pip on it, you can't drive through that tile. Kind of went through spells. Pick up the spell book, get a spell. You can use them during your turn. So it just says that. Special action. Spells are cards placed from your hand. By completing special effects, immediately a spell will be played at the start of the round, or a start of a player's turn indicated on the card effect. So if we look at this card like Freeze, it says start of a round before the first player goes. It's going to tell you what you get to do for it. And there are some of these are in multiple. So if we have a fireball, for example, it's going to target the nearest racer, they crash. So it just ends them. But we do have fireball back here in deck B as well. I don't think there's any in deck C, I don't remember. So some are only available in one. The bomb lets you put a bomb directly behind you. At the end of the round, if a thing hits it, it blows up and damages all racers in there. So it's kind of like the banana. We have Firebolt, we have Payday, just lets you gain 2 extra coins. Zombie, place a zombie directly behind you. We have some haste, some different other ones there. Some of them, again, appear more later on. Teleport's only in C. Fear's only in C. I think Freeze is only in C. So, like, the hardest spells. Also, a thing you can do any turn is one of the racer's powers. Each racer has 2 powers and upper, costing 2 and learning separate coins, which is a little bit more expensive. Each ability can only be activated once per round, but both can be activated as long as you have enough coins. Any point during the turns unless otherwise stated. So you have other options to do during your turn between movements. So I can move, if I have 5 movement, I can move 3 spaces, play a spell card, or play a racer power whenever I need to. You don't have to do it before you move. So, alright, ending the round. Any hazards occur at the end of the round. Certain epic heroes, any bombs that weren't triggered during play. The player's position on the track changes. So then figure out basically who's closest to the finish line. Adjust them on the ranking. If there's 2 people that are tied, they're both tied for that spot. The next spot stays empty. And then it continues, and that determines who gets what spell that turn, if they have a spell book. But here it's showing Belladonna and Gorgana each have one. So that means Porcus and Croak don't get any spells, even though they're listed by spell B. Change the first player. The first player passes clockwise, and the next round begins. The new first player takes their turn. So whoever is actually in first place on the board is not the first player for the turn. And it goes in clockwise order, so everyone gets the same advantage. As soon as someone crosses the finish line after traveling on every tile on the track, even if just by half a hex, the game is in its final round. All players whose turn occurred after the player crossed the finish line get to take their final turn. Anyone who took their turn this round before the player who crossed does not get another turn. This is the final round. So basically just finishes up whoever needed to finish and finish the rest of that round. Each player who passed the finish line, counting the remaining MP, including half MP if they exited on half a tile, whoever has the most MP remaining after crossing the finish line wins the game. If there's a tie, whichever player in the tie has the lowest points. So basically, it's a weird way to end the game, right? So if one person obviously gets there and nobody else does, they win the game. Clear and simple. But if 2 people finish, because maybe one person got there, and then the first player got there, then the third player somehow pulled out behind them, but they happened to get it with 4 MP left, where the first player got it with 1 MP, that means the third player would end up winning. It kind of makes sense. It's sort of because he'd be saying they went faster. They had more points to move across. They sped by. B again, because you're going turn order 1, 2, 3, 4. There's not much to do. Now, here, a big note here is after traveling on every tile of the track. So why this is important is because, so again, if I take my King Croak, I can go like this, cross through this direction, and I have to go all the way around. Now, there is a wall right there, so there is actually no way for me to jump through any of these side tiles here. But if for some reason there wasn't a wall there, you could not cross through like this and then skip this entire tile. You'd have to go at least somewhere on that tile. I think they did probably a pretty good job of making sure that's not going to happen. But when you have so many different tiles that are all interchangeable and everything, there's always a possibility that something might happen that might keep you from having you might be a way to skip through a tile somehow. But yes, you have to hit every single tile once. That way someone can't be like, oh look, I found a shortcut. I just need to turn and go straight across this way and I can skip an entire tile. Because that's not fair. Alright, so that's the basis of the game. Just have a little picture on the back of the book to have all the different icons. Tracking guides, turn order, all that stuff as well. And then we also have our little reference book that says the same thing. Round structure, do this stuff. On your turn, do this. On the back side, it does show your actions for your carts. I love that they also put break on there as well. Plus your card abilities. This is kind of nice to have kept out. And on the inside, you have a list of all the different hazards and effects. Most of them you crash or you do something special. The one thing we didn't look at yet at all was the epic heroes. So if you run into one of the heroes, which will have a hero symbol on it, versus a regular hero will just look like this guy. All the heroes will have a specific character. It says remove the token. Epic heroes have unique setup and gameplays listed on their card. So for example, if I have the princess, it says whenever a racer ends their turn in the princess's hex tile, they move 1 hex closer to the princess. The racer hits the princess, they crash, then remove the princess. So this means when anyone gets to this tile, which is happens to be the finish tile, so if they come in like way down over here, they all of a sudden now have to try and move on the end of their turn. So he stopped here. You have to try and move. You have to move 1 hex closer to her. Luckily, it's still close to the end. It's not going to be that probably big of a deal. But now the other thing was if she was over here, for example, as soon as he got in here, he automatically has to try and move closer to her, so he might end up crashing into her on purpose or not. And then each different character has different things. So, like, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the druid has placed grass token under the druid and all 6 encasing tiles around him. If they hit the druid, they crash and then remove the druid. So it actually changes the board. So we have a bunch of, if I can grab them here, we have a bunch of grass tiles, which are 2 speeds. So I was saying, if this is the druid, it'd be turning all of these into grass tiles. I'm showing this over here, and I don't even have the camera faced on that. Yeah, so you turn all these tiles into grass, which effectively change what it is. Now, depending on where the hazard is, that could make, like, way up at the top, that could make some of them water easier to deal with. But if it's down here, it could make that a lot harder. If the druid was over here, all of a sudden this now becomes grass. Hey, that's easier to drive through. It's 2 instead of 3. And then there's some other ones, like the shinobi places. Smoke-filled traps down, so you don't know what they are. They could be a book. They could be coins. They could be nothing at all. Just an empty tile, but I think like one of them might be a zombie. Yeah, one of them could be a zombie. So they have those. They have another character that places some blocking crystal terrain on the board. Yeah, so they're all going to have various different effects as well. And they're just random traps that come up. And again, this is always something you can always customize as well. You're supposed to pull them hazard tokens from the bag. But like, as you're setting up your track, you could decide to go ahead and change that around and play specific things. Maybe you want to play just a bunch of tar traps everywhere. Maybe you're playing with the graveyard tiles. You just want to place a bunch of graveyard. Maybe you just want to have heroes on every spot. That's definitely up to you. Then we do have the dice for the boost token, which will, if you hit one of the boost traps, they'll move you around quicker. And then we have the Crushinator, which will do some various stuff, like it'll spin you out, or it'll get you some coins, depending on your luck. Did you get through it, or did you crash? Did it clip you? Did it crush you? Did you just get some coins for that space? So those are kind of extra fun little things as well. I'm not going to go into every single one of them right now. You will definitely look at that in the next video. I just want to see any other kind of role. Yeah, so they do have, like, in this book, they have a list of what all the different stuff do. Crushinator shows the dice. Druid gets its tokens around it, kind of showing that, which is very helpful. Plus, again, with all their different abilities, explaining exactly how Croaks works. It's all really fun to be able to do. Plus, how all the spell cards work. We're going to just see that a little bit better. Just showing if you place a bomb, that's how it's going to rack, and that's where it's going to hit. So that's very helpful as well. The last thing I did want to go over, that I did not touch on yet, is Rally Mode. So Rally Mode is interested with an even number of players and a higher player count. Recommend to be using anytime you're playing with 8 players, but use for 4 or 6 as well. Rally Mode players split into 2 teams sitting alternated seats around the table. Each player takes a rally team marker for the team, deciding red or blue, and slots in the back of the racer. At the end of the game, each player just points based on what position they finished in. Combine the points for each team, and whichever team has more points wins. So again, during the game, you cast any spells to target a racer will not affect your own team. Fireballs, cave-in, sabotage, fear, freeze. Only target opponents. Other spells that don't specify targets will still affect your team, like firebolt, zombie, or bomb. Yeah, you still bump or use your boss powers on your own teammates, and sometimes you're clever, you can bump your teammates into a better position. So that's kind of neat. We're going to get these little little tiny like things they just swat on the back side of your character. So hey, he's Team Red, and you have one for Team Blue, so you can play a team game. Which is pretty fun as well that we have something neat like that. Alright, so that's what we have for this video. That's kind of the basics of the rule. Here's all the people that worked on the game. I like showing that off at times. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Come back, check out part 2. We'll actually look at each tile, each token, each ability, and all that stuff. We'll dive into those a little bit more. Alright, see you guys there. Bye.